questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Line 5 provides all the jet fuel for Pearson Airport and most of the propane used in home heating in Ontario. The Pipe Fitters Union says that 6,500 trades jobs will be affected if Line 5 is shut down. Another 20,000 spin-off jobs could also be at risk. Is the Prime Minister finally going to stand up for Canadian energy workers, or will there be more pink slips delivered this spring?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Muriel?
Mr. Speaker, our government understands very well the importance of the energy sector and
it's okay.
Energy workers.
I'm just going to interrupt for a second. The Honourable Minister.
As Finance Minister,
I'm not sure if they can hear me, but we're having someone's looking for Muriel. I'm sure Muriel will answer. We'll just leave that one there. But I want to make sure that everyone mutes their microphones. And if you don't mind, we'll take this one from the top because there was some interference and one of the question wasn't coming across well. So I'll let the Honourable Leader of the Opposition go from the top and we'll go from there like it never happened. There you go.
I hope they find Muriel. This is another shot at this, Mr. Speaker. Line 5, that pipeline, provides all the jet fuel for Pearson Airport and most of the propane that Ontario's homes use to heat their home in the winter. The Pipe Fitters Union says that 6,500 trades jobs will be lost if the line is shut. Another 20,000 spin-off jobs could be lost as well. Is the Prime Minister finally going to stand up for Canadian energy workers, or will more families receive pink slips this spring?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government understands very clearly the importance of the energy sector to the Canadian economy and the importance of the energy sector as a provider of valuable, high-paying, very often union jobs. As Finance Minister, I am very aware of this and very aware of the importance of the energy sector in contributing to Canada's balance of trade. So yes, Mr. Speaker, our government has and will continue to stand up for the energy sector and for energy workers.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Prime Minister is aware her government shut down 2 pipelines and now the Americans are trying to do the same. Line 5 has operated safely for decades. But now its future hangs in the balance because the governor of Michigan wants to shut it down. The U.S. Department of Transport will have the final say on whether Line 5 survives this threat. Why is the Prime Minister sitting back as the United States considers shutting down another Canadian pipeline?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said, our government understands very well the importance of the energy sector to the Canadian economy, the importance of the energy sector as a provider of great, high-paying, often unionized jobs, and the importance of the energy sector as a contributor to our balance of trade. When it comes to the trading relationship with the United States, let me say, Mr. Speaker, our government has a lot of experience in dealing with a sometimes volatile but always essential relationship, and we're going to keep on doing just that.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, The Economist has shown that most Canadians will be vaccinated 6 months after the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union have all completed their vaccine rollout. And that was before the latest cut of another 500,000 doses for Canada. Weeks ago, the Prime Minister said he had a plan for 367,000 doses per week. Now the Prime Minister will only deliver 15% of what he promised just a few weeks ago. Is 15% a success in the eyes of the Deputy Prime Minister?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me remind Canadians of the situation with vaccines. Canada has secured 10 doses of vaccine per Canadian, and we have the most diverse and extensive vaccine portfolio in the world. More than 1.1 million doses have already arrived in Canada. 6 million will arrive by the end of the first quarter, and every Canadian who wants to be vaccinated will be by September.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
À la vitesse qu'on roule, la campagne.
At the rate we're going, the vaccine campaign presented by the Prime Minister in December will not be a reality, will not become a reality for 18 months. It's a failure. With this Liberal government, we will be behind Europe, the UK, and the US and other countries at every stage in the pandemic. Delays are a question of life and death. Why is this Prime Minister always late in responding to this crisis? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I agree that vaccines are an urgent matter, and this is a priority for our government. That is why we have obtained 10 vaccine doses per capita. Canada has already received more than 1.1 million doses, and it will receive 6 million by the end of the first quarter. All Canadians who want to receive a vaccine will be able to do so by September 2021. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Urgent, Mr. Speaker? 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister said that Pfizer would be sending 337,000 doses per week. But 1 week later, we'd only received 79,000 doses. This week, 0 doses. Each week is worse than the previous one, Mr. Speaker. The provinces are ready. Where are the promised vaccines? The Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to underscore that Canada has already received 1.1 million doses, and that we will receive 6 million doses in total by the end of the quarter. The Prime Minister and the entire government are very committed to this urgent work. The Prime Minister.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, something strange happened in October. The IMF had us growing this year at 5.2%. Now, it's 3.6%. That's a massive drop, and the only thing that's happened since then is that the government has released a phantasmic economic statement and a speech from the throne full of crazy ideas to re-engineer our entire economy. Even a former Liberal advisor is out saying this government will have spent $1 trillion to achieve nothing for our economy. So once again, with $30 billion of lost GDP and lost paychecks along with it, what does this government expect all those jobless people to do to pay their bills? Are they just expected to put it on the credit card?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government's priority today is fighting and conquering the coronavirus. We absolutely understand that some provinces and territories, all provinces and territories, have put in place some restrictions, necessary restrictions to fight the virus, and we support that work. The best economic policy for Canada right now is a strong health policy, and that is why the Government of Canada is providing strong support to Canadian workers and Canadian businesses to get through to the other side of the coronavirus. Once we get there, we will come roaring back.
A mockery of ourselves, Mr. Speaker. The government should do 3 things, and I hope it's listening. Firstly, make tourists who claimed $1,000 for their quarantine since the 3rd of October to refund the money. Secondly, mandate monitored quarantines paid for by the travelers. And thirdly, send the bill to all those who spent their quarantine in a hotel for free. When will the government act? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, I'd like to underscore for all Canadians and Quebecers that we should not travel abroad at the moment. It's dangerous for the country and it's dangerous for our communities. Regarding the program, we are taking immediate steps to resolve the programs to ensure that international travelers cannot access that benefit. And we are also working on measures at the border to make the situation even more strict, although there are already strict measures in place. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Mr. Speaker, the provinces have learned that Canada will be receiving 3.5 million doses of the COVID vaccine instead of the $6 million promised by the Prime Minister. Fewer vaccines will lead to more infections and more deaths. What will the Prime Minister do to ensure that we get enough doses to vaccinate the entire population? What is the plan? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the plan is the following. Firstly, we have the most diverse vaccine portfolio in the world with 10 doses per Canadian. We have already received 1.1 million doses. We will receive 6 million by the end of the first quarter. And all Canadians who want to get vaccinated will be able to get the vaccine by September 2021.
For Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, that is not a plan. Those are some goals, but Canadians need to know what the plan is to achieve those goals. Provinces learned today that there's only 3.5 million doses instead of the 6 million promised. We know that less doses means more infection and more death. We need a clear plan. So my question to the Prime Minister is, what is the plan? What is the plan to make sure everyone in our country is vaccinated? Lay out that plan in detail so Canadians can rest assured. What is the plan?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are rightly focused on vaccines, and so is our government. And that's why I'm glad to have the chance to offer Canadians these facts and this plan. We have the most diverse and extensive vaccine portfolio in the world, 10 doses per Canadian. 1.1 million doses have already arrived in our country, 6 million by the end of the first quarter, and every Canadian who wants to be vaccinated will be by September.
L'honorable député de Charbot.
The Honourable Member for Charbot-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, this government set a goal of vaccinating all Canadians who want to be vaccinated by the end of September. If we want to meet that goal, we will need 60 million doses, 2 per person. So we need 2 million doses per week. How many will be missing this week? 2 million. And next week, 1.9 million. Who will be left out due to this failure? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to begin by saying that we have a very solid plan in place with 7 vaccine manufacturers, and our strategy from the very beginning is to ensure that Canadians have access to a vaccine by the end of September. We have 4 million vaccines coming into this country prior to the end of the quarter, 20 million from approved vaccine suppliers by the end of the second quarter, and all Canadians will have access to a vaccine prior to the end of September. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable député de Charbot-Haute-Saint-Charles.
The Honourable Member for Charbot-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, we've already heard this story about having the biggest portfolio in the world with 10 doses per capita. We've heard that plenty of times. But the problem now is that we've heard that next week we're only going to get 79,000 doses from Pfizer. All of that doesn't add up. What I want to know is why the minister cancelled a 16 million dose contract with Moderna.
Mr. Speaker, it's inaccurate to say that we canceled a contract with Moderna. On the contrary, Moderna is providing 2 million vaccines to Canada this quarter alone, and we have secured 40 million vaccine doses from Moderna in total. In addition, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that Susan Athey, a professor at the University of Stratford, a leader in vaccine strategy, says that Canada is a role model around the world, Mr. Speaker. That's because of our vaccine strategy, which has been in place and will deliver for Canadians this year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
I think my colleague has a point, Mr. Speaker. We actually need about 2 million doses per week to meet the need if you do the math on it. Yet we're behind 2 million doses this week. We're going to be behind 1.9 million doses next week and 1.9 million doses the week after. This math just isn't really working out for me. So if we're about 6 million doses behind, when are those coming?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, that this is a global environment which is extremely competitive as all companies ramp up their supply chains. We will receive 6 million doses of vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna prior to the end of the quarter, 20 million from approved vaccine suppliers prior to the end of Q2, and prior to the end of the third quarter, all Canadians will have access to a vaccine should they want to. That's why, Mr. Speaker, people from around the globe and within Canada are hailing Canada's strategy relating to vaccine. I point to Professor Chagla, Professor Kindrachuk, an assistant professor at the University of Manitoba, as well as Lurianne Hadcastle from the University of Calgary itself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, if we want to quote people, The Economist magazine said that Canada is not going to be vaccinated until 2022. So again, by our math, we should be getting about 2 million doses per week to make the September timeline. Yet the minister is saying that we're only going to be getting 6 million doses by the end of March. We should be getting 8 million doses by the end of February. So if we're 2 million short this week, 1.9 million short next week, and 1.9 million short the week after that, what are they doing to make up the shortfall?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. I don't believe shortfall is the accurate term to use. Indeed, we have the most diverse portfolio in the world, and we are assuring Canadians that of approved vaccines alone, there will be sufficient numbers to vaccinate all Canadians prior to the end of September. There's a significant ramp up that is required in the global supply chain, Mr. Speaker, and we need to acknowledge the global environment that we are operating under. Notwithstanding that, Canada is extremely well placed, and we will make sure Canadians have access to vaccines. That's my priority as Procurement Minister and our priority as a government. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Speaker, do you want the good news or the bad news? Well, we'll start with the good news. We all need a boost. IMF's out with its revised projections for economic growth, and the world growth output is up. Advanced economies projected output up. American GDP output way up, almost double. Now for the bad news. Canada's is 1/3 lower than projected just back in October. That's equal to $30 billion of lost GDP, lost paychecks for Canadians. So now that Canadians will not have those paychecks, what does this government expect them to do? Put it all on the credit card?
The Honourable Minister.
Based on the tremendous uncertainty about the future path of the, and there is tremendous variance among economists' forecasts. Is the Bank of Canada's Monetary Policy Report, which came out last week and predicted a 4% growth rate in 2021. It's also worth pointing out that in November, the Canadian economy outperformed forecasts on jobs and GDP growth.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, something strange happened in October. The IMF had us growing this year at 5.2%. Now it's 3.6%. That's a massive drop. And the